Beetlejuice, a cult classic gothic horror satire from 1988, recently just saw its sequel hit theaters, with many returning cast members such as Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and of course Michael Keaton. This new addition to the classic Tim Burton film expands the story we once knew, and the current day setting of the film, as well as the current day Hollywood landscape it was created within, affects how the sequel takes a different approach than its predecessor. Hi, my name is Francesca Dumitrescu, and I want to examine how popular feminism and neoliberalism are materialized and discussed in this franchise. But first, let me summarize each film. In Beetlejuice 1988, young married couple Adam and Barbara Maitland die in a car accident and become ghosts bound to their home. As the Maitlands try to navigate death both in their home and in the literal afterlife, which is weirdly bureaucratic, their home is sold to the Dietzes, a family from New York City made up of Charlie, an avid birdwatcher who repeatedly insists that he wants to relax.
I'm here to relax and clip coupons. And damn it, I mean to do it.
Then go do it quietly, dear, and let oath when I think.
Delia, Charlie's second wife, and a postmodernist sculptor who hates that she's been relocated to some random town.
I will not stop living and breathing art just because you need to relax.
Ha.
I'm here with you. I will live with you in this hellhole, but I must express myself. If you don't let me gut out this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will take you with me!
And Lydia, a self-proclaimed strange and unusual person. The Maitlands try to scare them away, and they reluctantly summon Beetlejuice, a chaotic and crude ghost, and they struggle to control him. Lydia, the Dietz's teenage daughter, is the only one who can see the Maitlands. The two parties form an unlikely alliance to rid the house of the Dietzes, but their attempts fail, leading to a botched seance where the Maitlands nearly perish. In desperation, Lydia agrees to marry Beetlejuice in exchange for his help to save the Maitlands, and while he does, the Maitlands intervene just in time to save Lydia and banish Beetlejuice. In the end, the Dietzes and the Maitlands live peacefully together, while Beetlejuice is stuck, waiting in the afterlife.
Whoa! Whoa! Stop it! Whoa!
In Beetlejuice Beetlejuice from 2024, there are a lot of side plots, so I will try to keep this summary as thorough but concise as possible. The Maitlands have moved on, and Lydia has grown up to be a professional ghost hunter TV personality. She is abruptly brought back together with her stepmother Delia and her estranged daughter Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, after the death of her father Charlie, and they come back to the house where it all began. At the wake, Lydia gets proposed to by her producer boyfriend, which is clearly unexpected and uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice is in the afterlife, and his killer ex-wife is on the loose. A dead actor, now detective, is trying to find her. And in the land of the living, Astrid befriends a boy who is revealed to be a ghost, and he convinces her to come back to the afterlife with the intention of tricking her to bringing him back to life at the cost of her own. Realizing this, Lydia once again strikes a deal with Beetlejuice that she will marry him in exchange for her help saving Astrid.
Here we go. I'm gonna make you so happy.
Jesus, what's the plan on getting in?
Once again, everyone gets saved, except unfortunately Delia, who reunites with Charlie in the afterlife. Beetlejuice perishes, and Lydia rejects her gold-digger fiancé and reconnects with her daughter. Now that we've covered what the films are about, I will be applying author Sarah Banet-Weiser's definitions of popular feminism and neoliberalism, two concepts that she discusses in her book, Empowered. These concepts coexist in our current world, so I believe it is important to consider them together. Popular feminism, to explain, is a form of feminism that, one, is manifested in discussions and practices that circulate in popular and commercial media. Two, the word popular signifies that like-minded people and groups like or admire the concept. And three, Banet-Weiser argues that the word popular indicates, quote, a terrain of struggle, a space where competing demands for power battle it out, end quote. Feminism is in and of itself a buzzword, and the word popular explains why. In our current society, popular feminism signifies that feminism is desired and valuable and visible, but it is also the result of the movements that came before it. And due to the media environment we currently exist in, popular feminism is dependent on the attention economy, what you see and how you react to it, if at all. Popular feminism, in Banet-Weiser's words, owes much to its predecessor, liberal feminism, but it more closely aligns with neoliberal principles. Neoliberalism can be described as a structure that values individualism, entrepreneurialism, confidence, and commodification. Popular feminism blends well with neoliberalism because the pursuit of popularity for feminism employs neoliberalism. Feminist slogans and symbols can be marketable, but even more than that, feminist ideas can be marketable. It is this marketability that contributes to the argument that popular feminism largely becomes performative feminism. Some scholars argue that it is oxymoronic to relate neoliberalism with feminism, but I believe that Banet-Weiser uses the term popular to connect the two terms. It is the bridge that brings feminism into neoliberalism. So, how does this relate to Tim Burton's Beetlejuice franchise? Well, for context, the first film was created in the 80s at the tail end of second-wave feminism. The second film was created in a post-#MeToo era. Both films have unique women playing in them, and for the most part, they lead the plots. But let's go into this a little deeper. In the original Beetlejuice, our three main women characters, Barbara, Delia, and Lydia, represent very different types of femininity. Sorry, white femininity. Barbara is a classic feminine figure who is conventionally attractive, happily married, and a homemaker. There are a couple moments that suggest that Barbara and her husband were struggling with fertility issues, before they died, but this is not expanded explicitly. However, the ending is sweet because the Maitlands, in a way, adopt Lydia as a daughter.
Well, did you get the paints?
Yes, and I took pictures of the new town hall for you, too.
How'd you do in that science test?
It was gross. They wanted me to dissect a frog. I told them no way. I said it was against my religion. So I got a C.
And how about the math test?
You have got to be kidding me. We spent the whole week studying for that test.
I got an A.
Lydia, the gothic teen, is the subversive feminine. She has sunken eyes, choppy bangs, and an all-black wardrobe. She's aware that she's different from her family, and people in general.
Well, I read through that handbook for the recently deceased. It says, live people ignore the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual.
Which brings us to Delia, Lydia's stepmom and an eccentric artist. But underneath her expressive and assertive personality, she too is a homemaker. Not like Barbara, but she renovates the home, she cooks, hosts the dinner party in the movie, and panders to her husband, even though it kind of seems like she doesn't like him all the time.
Delia,
You're right.
let's get one thing straight.
You're right.
We're here to enjoy the country setting, not to trash the place.
You're right.
I wouldn't say that any of the women in the story are explicitly feminist in the sense that we recognize today, but they're all visible and have clear agency. And as I mentioned before, they each drive the story. Lydia in particular, as a subversive character, is often considered the main character. From a personal perspective, that's definitely what I thought before watching Beetlejuice for the first time. I had no idea who the Maitlands were when I first watched the movie. I didn't even know they were going to be in the movie. I do want to point out that Tim Burton is known for his own subversive and gothic style in film. This is apparent in Corpse Bride, Alice in Wonderland, and the show Wednesday, all notable Burton works that feature subversive feminine characters as the protagonist. That is to say, popular feminism, in a way, exhibits itself through Beetlejuice and other Burton films through the fact that the main characters are women, or at least that the plot is driven by a significant woman character.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Before moving on, I want to go back to that offhanded comment I made about white femininity. Banet-Weiser observes that popular feminism is, quote, primarily white, middle class, cisgendered, and heteronormative, end quote. The women in Beetlejuice pretty much check all those boxes, and if anything, the Dietzes may be upper middle class. I want to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with women who are white, middle class, cisgendered, and heterosexual. The thing with popular feminism, though, is the exclusivity of it. Women who fit all of those categories are the ones who are most visible in popular feminism, while other women may not be. And, well, Beetlejuice fits the bill. While the women of Beetlejuice are definitely unique and they each bring something different to the film, they fit the constructs of popular feminism that Banet-Weiser has outlined. Now I want to bring us back to context. The first film was created in the 80s, which was the era of visible women in the news, as well as the era of blockbusters. As I mentioned before, visibility is an important aspect of popular feminism. Arguably, it's what allows it to pursue neoliberal principles. Blockbusters, too, were making a lot of money, and Tim Burton was a rising filmmaker who was given the chance to create a movie that has become so beloved and iconic. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, on the other hand, came out in 2024. We're in a highly technological era, and with that comes hyper-visibility. I also think that the language of the sequel reflects the modern era. Terms like safe space and non-triggering are used casually, although personally they took me out of the movie a bit. The characteristics of popular feminism are not much different in the sequel than in the original. Other than the addition of Jenna Ortega, a Latina actress, we are still left with a predominantly white, middle-class, cisgendered, and heteronormative cast. What I do want to add here, though, is Winona Ryder remains a key figure in the film, which I appreciated because there are a lot of conversations right now regarding older women in Hollywood and how their value diminishes as they age. And I think that can be attributed in a way to popular feminism. So the fact that Winona Ryder as Lydia and Catherine O'Hara as Delia are still strong characters in the film is a good sign about the status of women in Hollywood.
To clarify this point, I want to add that I believe that this can be attributed to popular feminism because popular feminism is often an accommodating form of feminism, according to Banet-Weiser. And I believe that very much centers young women who also fit in the categories we've previously discussed, and therefore older women don't always appeal to popular feminism.
Let me circle back to Jenna Ortega and her character Astrid. While I was watching the film, she stuck out to me as a woke teen archetype. She works towards sustainability, she calls out Lydia's fiance when he says something problematic, and she dresses up as, quote, feminist icon Marie Curie for Halloween. This characterization, I believe, is meant to be a sort of caricature of feminism, but not so overdone that you can't take Astrid seriously. She critiques current systems, and she feels empowered to do so. I think Astrid would not like popular feminism, and she would be the one to critique it, but at the same time, dressing up as feminist icon Marie Curie within the context of a blockbuster inherently matches up with popular feminism. As Banet-Weiser states in regards to t-shirts with feminist slogans, quote, the t-shirt is the politics. The politics are contained within the visibility. Visual representation becomes the beginning and the end of political action, end quote. Pointing out Marie Curie as a feminist icon, that's the political action of visual representation. That is the politics of it. Before I move on to neoliberalism, one more thing about popular feminism. As I mentioned earlier, popular feminism is supported by being circulated in popular and commercial media. How do you get more popular and commercial than a blockbuster? In terms of neoliberalism within the franchise, its values are apparent through the Dietzes. When Delia and Charlie realize that the house is haunted in the original Beetlejuice, their next step is not to move out immediately, but to commodify it. And as we've discussed, commodification is a key principle of neoliberalism. Charles pitches the house as a type of supernatural theme park to an investor, and the latter third of the film is all about in preparation of welcoming the investor. This is where Beetlejuice himself gets more involved. I think this commercialization and marketing of the supernatural and of the ghosts of Barbara and Adam Maitland is very much a neoliberalist characteristic and principles that are very apparent in the original film, probably the most apparent thing that we'll see about neoliberalism in the original film. Not to mention Delia's creativity and artwork as a motif for individualism, another principle of neoliberalism. Throughout the film, she implicitly and explicitly relates her artwork to her very being.
Careful, that's my sculpture. And I don't mean my and I bought it, I mean I made it. It's my sculpture.
This connection to her art is a strong part of her character, and it's consistent throughout the sequel, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, as well.
I am with a grief collective. Wilting gladioli. No, we need to unpack the art of sorrow.
I further argue that Lydia has a strong sense of individualism, as well as she embraces her subversive and gothic style. I would argue, though, overall, that Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, the sequel, is a clear example of neoliberalism, both within the movie and the plot and in the context it was made. It is in the nature of sequels within the film industry to ride on the success of the original film. The nature of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice being a sequel to a beloved cult classic made after 36 years suggests that it too wants to write off the success, both culturally and financially, of the original. Within the sequel, the existence of commodification as a theme is apparent. Lydia commodifies her skill as someone who can talk to dead people and see dead people, and hosts a show where she invites people on and contacts dead people. And she finds good capitalistic success in that, as is apparent in her fiancé trying to exploit her, as well as the fact that she lives in a big city and can afford to send her daughter to boarding school. Delia becomes a successful artist in sculpture and opens her own gallery, and after her husband dies, she embarks on a creative journey to exhibit her grief. But since she makes her living off of art, that means that she plans on commodifying her grief as well. What? She even says to Lydia at the end of the movie that her work will go up in value after her death. These instances of neoliberalism, or at the very least, neoliberalistic concepts in the film, provide context for the popular feminism in the film to thrive. That's the argument I believe Banet-Weiser would pose, as she states, quote, "Popular feminism needs a capitalist context." But let's be clear, outside of the film, the commodification of Beetlejuice as a franchise is a characteristic of neoliberalism. Through film, it strives for capitalist success in the box office, and I don't think it's too outlandish to say that Tim Burton himself, who is already a well-known and successful filmmaker, was also striving for further capitalist success. An article by Vox further discusses this idea. The 1988 version of Beetlejuice is considered to be in the sweet spot of Burton's career, before he succumbed to CGI and stories that had his style but not his charm. In the article, they state in relation to Burton's recent work, quote, "The drive to accumulate money, when it takes over the drive to make great art or entertainment, kills creativity and crowds out humanity and decency," end quote. Popular feminism and neoliberalism are part of our culture, and if something is popular, you can bet it'll end up in a blockbuster. And I want to be clear, the Beetlejuice franchise is still a fun one, and I don't want this analysis to take away anyone's enjoyment of the films. I know I certainly enjoy them. It is interesting, though, to investigate these films with 36 years between them in terms of popular feminism and neoliberalism. Indeed, the Beetlejuice franchise might be an interesting pick to analyze, but I think because it is made to be fun and digestible for many audiences, it makes it a great choice to see how popular feminism and neoliberalism exist in everyday contexts and media we consume easily. Thank you for joining me in this journey in unpacking the Beetlejuice franchise and what both films and their contexts and their plots mean for popular feminism and neoliberalism, and how those terms connect. When we learn to recognize these things, it brings into perspective why our society works the way it does. You can do with that information what you will, but I hope you enjoyed this video nonetheless and learned something new from it. My name is Francesca. All the resources I used for this video will be in the description down below, and thanks again for watching.
It's kind of too much to comprehend, I think.
That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't.